What's going on, backpackers, and welcome back to another episode of Off Grid. My name is Dave, and I'm into backpacking, hiking, camping, and gear. If you like those things too, please think about subscribing down below if you haven't already. It really helps out the channel, and I would greatly appreciate it. Now, today is actually take two of a video that I tried to shoot yesterday, and I was unsuccessful at shooting because I kind of stumbled my way through it. So I went back to the drawing board, took a bunch of notes, and hopefully this time around it'll be a lot smoother. But it is on the topic of the brand new Jetboil Stash. A lot of people are talking about it, and I thought that I would do an in-depth look into it. I don't own it, so that's going to be a caveat right off the bat to let you guys know that I don't have it. But I figured that I would think about it more in depth and see whether or not the numbers kind of add up and whether or not the Stash is a legit, true contender for a lightweight, ultra lightweight stove in the backpacking space. So let's get started. So right off the bat, if you've never heard of Jetboil before, they are one of the more premium options that you can get in the backpacking world. They are known to be one of the most efficient stove systems on the market, but also one of the most expensive systems on the market. And in the past, they've been known to be a little bit more heavy as far as their systems go. So this is their, or I don't know if it's the first or one of the first really ultra light systems that Jetboil has created. Another thing that I'll note about today's video is that I am going to specifically talk about alcohol stove systems over gas canister stove systems. So all the times and everything that I'm going to be talking about and breaking down the numbers for are going to be specific to that style of cooking and that stove system. But you can easily apply what I'm talking to today towards gas canister stoves as well. So in an effort to try to make this as simplified as possible, I'm breaking it down into a few different categories here. And I got my notes right here to reference as I'm kind of going along. First category is going to be the time to boil 2 cups of water. Now, I'm going to be talking specifically today towards just boiling water for dehydrated meals. I'm not going to be talking towards more of the complex cooking in the backcountry. It's really just a time comparison on boiling a couple of cups of water. And then the number 2 topic is going to be the total fuel used for each one of the boils. And then the last topic, the third topic, is going to be the total cost, and that's going to be in a couple of different categories I'm going to be talking about for that, so stay tuned for that one. And the last topic I'm going to be covering is just going to be like my final takeaways. So let's dive right in. The first thing that I want to talk about real quick is going to be the tech specs, to kind of get those out of the way real quick. Now, this video is not meant to be a versus video or a comparison video. However, I needed something to compare it to, especially since I didn't own the Stash. And today I'm going to be talking specifically to the Toaks Titanium. This is the 750 milliliter pot. So when I'm going to be talking about price differentials and time differentials, I'm going to be referencing this pot, and that's what I used on my end for my time trials and whatnot. So tech specs, let's get it going. For the Toaks 750 milliliter titanium pot, it is made out of titanium. It costs $35. I rarely ever see this on sale. I don't think I actually ever saw it on sale so far. The capacity is around 25 ounces for that 750 milliliters. And the total weight for that pot without the stuff sack or the bag that it came with is 3.6 ounces. If you would add the bag with the pot, the total weight is 4.05 ounces. For the Jetboil Stash, the entire system they have up online, it is made out of aluminum. It has an MSRP of $130. I have seen that on sale recently. The first time I've ever been able to see it on sale was at REI. As of the date of this recording, I'm recording right around Memorial Day, so they had 20% off, so that was the first time I was able to see that on sale. The capacity is 0.8 liters or around 27 ounces, and the total weight for the entire system is 7.1 ounces. But if you get rid of the stove stand as well as the stove in it, a lot of people forego that for other types of stoves, then if you're just looking at the pot with the lid, it is 4.23 ounces. Okay, tech specs out of the way now. Let's get into the nitty gritty and talk about the overall time trials now. Again, this is me doing a time trial at my personal residence. A lot of different caveats in here, a lot of different things that I'm going to note along the way. Right off the bat here, this is indoors. There's no wind factor. The temperature is, like around 72 degrees or something. It's inside and not open to the elements. So take that with a grain of salt. The other thing that I want to do right now is get my shout out of the way, because I'm actually going to reference a video from a fellow YouTuber by the name of Paul Messner and his channel. Huge kudos goes out to him. Big shout out to him. He just passed 100,000 subscribers. I think he's actually at like 110,000 now. It's pretty crazy. He's blowing up. He is a fellow YouTuber over in UK. He's got a great channel, goes on a ton of trips, has a ton of great gear reviews. He's also doing a camper conversion right now, so he's got amazing content. Definitely get on over and check out his channel. But I especially wanted to call him out today because of the reference video that I'm going to be talking about right up here. I think it's on this side here. I'm going to post a link in the cards for his video. Definitely check that one out, as well as you're kind of like watching along with my video, because that's what I'm going to be using for the basis of my time trials for the Jetboil Stash pot. So again, there's a couple of caveats here and differences here. In his video, he's doing an alcohol test trial at the end of that video, and he's using a Trangia stove, which is an alcohol stove that I think is made out of either aluminum or brass. And then the pot that he's using is also made out of aluminum, just like the Stash, but he's using a knockoff pot that has its own flux ring technology. But the reason why I'm going with that time trial is because if you look earlier in his video, he compares that knockoff pot to the Jetboil Stash, and he ends up getting basically the same amount of time to boil his right around 2 cups of water. So I'm going to use that as the golden standard here, again, because I don't own the pot. And the difference on my end is that I am using not only the Toaks titanium pot, but I also have the Toaks titanium alcohol burner. So I used that for my time trial. So my system is entirely titanium, and his system, I think, was entirely aluminum. So there is a difference in the types of materials used, or the type of metal that's used. I did a time trial with a stainless steel pot with the same alcohol burner, and I definitely saw increased burn times, or the amount of time that it took to boil my 2 cups of water was massively increased because it was a different type of metal. So in Paul's video, he has the Trangia stove, alcohol stove burner with a knockoff Stash pot that he runs a couple of different tests on. So that was one test, and the other test was just using the alcohol stove with a regular aluminum pot with no flux ring on it. And with the regular pot, he ended up getting about 2 cups of water to boil in about 10 minutes and 9 seconds. And then with the knockoff flux ring pot, he got that down to a whopping 4 minutes and 37 seconds. So that was a reduction of over half the time. But to keep it conservative, I'm going to say that was just around half the time for my video today. Again, that's using 2 aluminum pots. And with my own personal test, again with the Toaks titanium burner and the Toaks pot, I was able to get 2 cups of water to boil in about 7 minutes. Probably, I think it was a little bit under 7 minutes, but I'm going to go with 7 minutes for a rolling boil. And that's it pretty much for the time trials there. So if you're comparing Paul's video to mine, again, he's using an all aluminum setup and I'm using a titanium setup. So I think those times are roughly what you'd expect comparing those 2 different types of metal. Titanium heats up a lot more quickly, so I wasn't super surprised to find out that my system was a little bit more efficient as far as the time and the amount of fuel used to boil those 2 cups of water goes. So over to the second category now, and that is the category of the total fuel used for the Stash, or the mock Stash system that Paul had in his video. The total boil time for the 2 cups of water, again, was 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Now, I found out that in my personal trials with my titanium burner, I was able to get 1 ounce of alcohol to burn for about 11 minutes. One test was a little bit over 11 minutes, the other one was a little bit under, so I averaged it due to be about 11 minutes. So half of that is 5.5 minutes. So if you think about the time frame there, the 4 minutes and 37 seconds compared to the 5.5 minutes, that leaves you an extra minute to deal with outside weather and factors from being in the outdoors. So for my Toaks titanium pot, the total boil time for my 2 cups of water again was 7 minutes. So again, if you're doing the same math of 1 ounce of alcohol burning for 11 minutes, if you take that alcohol down to about 3/4 of an ounce, the total burn time for that would be 8 minutes and 15 seconds. So at 7 minutes compared to 8 minutes and 15 seconds, again, that's leaving me a little bit over a minute for variable conditions and things like that. I'm not 100% sure if that will work 100% of the time in the field, so take that as a caveat and take that with a grain of salt. But in both instances, with the amount of alcohol that I'm budgeting to boil your 2 cups of water, you're getting a little bit over an extra minute there of total burn time. So that's it for the total fuel used. Now over to the third topic here, and that is the total cost. So for one of these cans, I got one right here. One of these cans of denatured alcohol, which I would recommend using. You can use different types of fuel as well, but for today's video, I'm going to be talking about this one. This one's by Crown. I was able to get it from REI for about $8. That is for a quart size, 32 ounces. And I may get into different types of fuel and how to, which fuels are more efficient and whatnot, but I would definitely recommend denatured alcohol. It's clean burning, doesn't leave soot all over the place, and it's pretty efficient, so I definitely recommend that. So again, if you're using 3/4 of an ounce of alcohol for a 2-cup boil in the Toaks titanium setup, what you're going to end up getting, doing the math on that too, is instead of using an ounce each time, 32 ounces in the can, you're using 3/4 of an ounce, so you're using a quarter less, so the total amount of boils that you can get is 42 out of that can. And then crunching the numbers, doing the math on that, that comes down to about 19 cents per 2 cups of water to bring to a boil. The time difference between my Toaks pot and the Stash knockoff pot that Paul used was 7 minutes to come to a boil from my titanium pot, 4 minutes and 37 seconds for Paul Messner's knockoff pot. That is an efficiency increase of somewhere around 34%. But again, for the amount of fuel used that I just talked about in the last topic, I'm going with half of an ounce for the Stash knockoff or the Stash, and then 3/4 of an ounce of alcohol for my Toaks titanium setup. So that basically means that if you're going with the Stash, it's going to end up being about a quarter more efficient in the overall amount of fuel that you're going to end up using. So let's get into my final takeaways here between these two, because I haven't really given you my personal opinion quite yet as to which way I'm kind of leaning towards. Ultimately, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking it kind of comes down to what type of backpacker and camper are you, and which category do you really fall into. I myself personally would categorize myself more of the weekend warrior. So if I get out, if I'm lucky to get out, I would get out maybe once a month. So that's basically like 12 trips a year. And each time I go out, I plan for around 4 boils, basically boiling 8 cups of water. And doing the math on that, you get about 48 cups of water that you'd have to boil every single year. So again, going back to how many boils can I get out of one of these cans, you can get about 42 boils out of the can. I need about 48 for the year, so it ended up lasting me a little bit under a year. But I'll briefly touch on the other types of backpackers in just a second, but I want to get over into one of my main points here, which is the total price difference and the amount that you can expect to save with the Stash over the Toaks titanium setup. So with all the math and all the numbers that I kind of just threw at you right there, the total savings that you can expect out of one can is roughly $2. If you are a quarter more efficient, that basically means that $8 can will run you about a year and a half compared to the year that I normally would go through the can with the titanium setup. And that basically means you can stretch it out a little bit longer, and instead of it being like $8 for that year's worth of use, it's closer to $6. So again, instead of it being 42 boils out of the can, you're going to be somewhere in the ballpark of, I think it is somewhere around like 63 or something like that. as far as the number of boils that you can get using the Stash system. So the final difference between the price of these two pots, again, the Toaks Titanium comes in at about $35, which normally would be a pretty expensive price for just one pot. The Jetboil Stash system, you have to buy the entire system. They don't have currently just the pot that you can buy. Ends up coming in at $130. That's a price difference of about $95. Now, per can, if you're only saving about $2 and you're stretching that out a little bit more, if you're doing the math on that, if you're talking about this from a perspective of, well, the Stash is going to save me money in the long run because I'm more fuel efficient, I'm using less fuel because I'm boiling water quicker with that flux ring technology. So if you're going with that mentality, with all the numbers that I threw out today, if you're only saving $2 every single year and a half, it would end up getting right around 71 years for you to just make up the price difference between those two pots. Now, that's from my own personal example. Again, jumping back into what kind of a backpacker are you? If you're a thru hiker and you go out all the time and you go on multiple trips throughout the year and you're boiling a ton of water throughout the year and time is of the essence, then you're going to be covering that gap a lot sooner than somebody like me, the weekend warrior, would cover that gap. And if you're somebody who just goes out maybe like a few times a year, it's actually going to be worse for you. So again, it really kind of depends on what type of backpacker you are or which one you intend to be. If you tend to get a ton of use out of this pot and time is of the essence because you need to hit the trail as quickly as possible and you need to save those few minutes, then I would definitely say that the Stash system is worthy of your consideration. But if you are basically any other style of camper where you don't really care if you spend an extra few minutes boiling water from either a gas canister style of system or an alcohol style system, like I don't really care as much about it either, then to me, I can't really justify such a higher price point that the Stash kind of comes in at. The price difference is just way out there. When I was buying the Toaks system, to me, it was kind of worth it because it definitely is the fastest type of metal to bring a couple of cups of water to boil. But, so to me, the $30 price point was a worthy investment because I knew that it was going to be more fuel efficient and it was going to bring the total time spent boiling water down, and it wasn't crazy inflated over some of the other pots that you can buy. Now you can go out to Walmart and get, a pot for maybe like a couple of bucks. So by that math, $35 versus a couple of dollars is still, about, 10 times the price and whatnot. So, if you're talking about the Jetboil versus the Toaks Titanium and overall price, again, the Stash is close to 4 times the price of the Toaks. But, in my mind, it really comes down to how much are you willing to spend. If money is no object and that's something that you don't really worry about either, you just want the most fuel efficient system out there, then definitely think about getting the Stash as well. But in my mind, I just couldn't go for it. Even now that it's on sale and you can grab it on sale, which wasn't the case when it first launched, I still can't really make it work for me mentally, financially, whatever, in order to pull the trigger on the system. So, maybe it could be a birthday gift idea, or if you were one of the early adopters that Jetboil kind of reached out to and gave you a free one, I would definitely take it if it was under those circumstances. But with everything else that I kind of threw at you guys today, I can't really say that I'm going to be thinking about buying this system anytime soon, unless the price point comes down by about half or more. So, and I don't see that happening with Jetboil anytime soon. So for me, for right now, at this point in time, I'm going to personally pass on it. And I think the numbers don't lie here. Financially, if you're talking about saving money on this system, you're going to be waiting an insanely long time until you actually even make up the price point difference between this pot and any other pots that are out on the market. So, it's a pass for me for right now. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you have this new Jetboil Stash, if you're loving it, what are the pros and cons that you've kind of seen with it so far compared to other systems. I'm also going to give you guys a sneak peek and let you know that in in the coming weeks, I'm going to be dropping another video that's going to compare alcohol stove systems versus gas canister stoves. So be on the lookout for that one coming pretty soon. And remember guys, if you're headed off grid, make sure you do your research and you make it a safe one. I'll see you guys later.